Shalom, Yashrala. This your brother Dawadah, coming back at you with this here truth again. First and foremost, I want to give all praise unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation and much love for you all can pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. So I want to jump into this here topic dealing with not all Israel is going to look the same. All right. Listening in on, some people that's, so-called coming up into this here truth, or stumbling across certain things or whatever, whatnot, and they're going into certain things, and, you have some people out there, first and foremost, this here job as a prophet and teacher is only, set for a certain amount of people or certain people to have this here job, and this is not saying this out of cockiness or anything like that, but it's just what the scriptures tell you, it's talking about, the 144,000, matter of fact, I'll actually grab that, because we go into, that, over at Great Millstone and, the camps is teaching in the same doctrine as under Great Millstone, that we have the 100% truth. All right. And this is not nothing that's, being said, a cocky thing to be said. All right. So, matter of fact, I'll actually break this down real fast. Let's go to, Daniel chapter 12. I'm going to start down a little bit. This is Daniel's chapter 12 and 9. It says, and he said, go thy way, Daniel, for thy words are closed up and sealed to the end. All right. Now let me jump up a little bit. Verse 4 says, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even to the times of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Now let me jump back down to the bottom. Verse 10, many shall be purified and made white and trod. All right. Now when it's talking about many shall be made white means made pure. All right. It says, many shall be purified and made white and trod, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. All right. Because why? These words in this here book, the prophecy is going to be sealed up. So not any and everybody's going to be able to teach this here book. All right. So let's get a further edification on that. This is Revelation 5 and 1. It says, and I saw at the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written within and on the backside sealed with 7 seals, talking about this here scripture. All right. The breakdowns of these scriptures. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof. It's the same book we was just reading about in Daniel. All right. Talking about the breakdowns of these here scriptures. Verse 3, it says, and no man in heaven nor on earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. All right. So nobody's able to break down this here scriptures. All right. Verse 4, and I wept much because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereupon. All right. So it's clear, it's made clear that these scriptures, and then everybody could give you their interpretation of this here scriptures, but nobody can give you the interpretation that the Most High has set forth. All right. He's the one who through these holy men penned this here book and gave the understanding. All right. Well, he made the parables and he's also the one that gives the understanding. All right. Verse 5, and one of the elders saith unto me, weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, have prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals thereof. All right. So what? The Most High gave it to Yahweh Shah to be able to understand these things. All right. So let's go over to Revelation 14. All right. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having the Father's name written in their foreheads. All right. So there's 144,000 with the Father's name written in their forehead. All right. Ezekiel 9 and 4 says, and Yahweh said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. All right. Now, I roughly paraphrase this one saying, go out to the highways and the byways and bid as many to the marriage. Right. So there's going to be men that's going to be on the highways and the byways, sighing and crying for all the abominations that be done thereof. Also in, oh shit, since I'm right here. Come on, go back. One more. All right. This is Ezekiel 3 and 17. It says, son of man, I've made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. All right. So the Most High made, certain men, this 144,000 with the Father's seal written in their forehead. It says, son of man, I've made thee a watchman into the house of Israel. Therefore hear the words at my mouth. So it's the Most High's words, not our words. All right. This is why we say we had the 100% truth, because it was given from the Most High. We just telling you what he's telling us. All right. And give them warning from me. All right. Not saying, this isn't me saying this my own self, like I'm gonna give you warning what I think is going on. No, this is the Most High's warning from him. All right. So you can keep on reading down, how he tell you, like, look, when I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked, from his wicked ways to save his life. All right, we're trying to give you warning to save your life. The same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but the blood will I require at thy hand. All right, so that's, the Most High gave this unto a certain men. Let me get back to that. Revelation 14. All right. Revelation 14:1. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of great thunder. And I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. And they sung as it were a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song. All right, what is that song talking about? This is the breakdowns of these scriptures. All right, going back into that book. All right, and no man can learn that song but the 144,000 which was redeemed from the earth. So it says no man can learn that song. So nobody can get the breakdown that's in this here book. All right, nobody can understand what's in this here book. None of the wicked is gonna understand. All right, only the 144,000 they're gonna be able to get this. All right, they're gonna be the ones that's gonna learn this new song. They're gonna sing this here new song. All right. So what? When they out there singing this new song, what's the new song? It's the breakdowns of these here scriptures, because like the scriptures say, hey man, nobody was able to open this here book. All right, it was always sealed. So everybody else had their own interpretation. They had their own version of the song. They all came up with what they thought the perfect song was going to be. But what? The Lord had his perfect song with the perfect notes and perfect tones and the perfect pitches to sing. And he gave it into his servants, the prophets, the 144,000. All right. So now going back to the lesson at hand. All right. Talking about, these different people out here teaching, and they trying to come up and so-called learn about certain things, and one of the topics I came across the other day was people talking about, it was going into different tribes and things like that about, the Edomites, who the Edomites are, and so on and so forth, which we constantly break this down to you all the time. And then you have those that think that, all Israel is going to be all black. Well, there is some truth to that. All Israel, was basically all black. The whole planet was all basically black, so-called black people. All right. You have to understand Esau is the only person that was basically outside of that. All right. We was all basically derivatives of brown. All right. So we don't put this on skin color. This is not a thing about skin color. All right. Now you hear us speak in terms of skin color a lot, but that's for your purposes, because you can't, maybe understand how, if we was to say, okay, Ishmael, Moab, and Ammon, and all of these, and Ham, and all these motherfuckers came and took Israel in captivity, you know what I'm saying, and sold them off to Esau, you wouldn't know what none of that was really talking about. But if we was telling you, the Chinese, the Arabs, the Africans, they wound up rounding up you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans and sold you to the so-called white man, you can understand it that way. All right. But however, as far as the history of the planet and the things that happen on the planet, all right, you can't just necessarily say, oh, all so-called black people are who we talking about. All right. Shalaka, because we know of something like hell, you got the wheat and the tares, or you have what we call today race mixing, right? You have how they would say mixed breed people or mixed race people, which there's no such thing of that. You are what your father is. However, you'll have people that look a little different because of their skin color. All right. So for instance, we always give the example of Blake Griffin, right? This is a perfect example. We have this on one of our poster boards when we go out to camp. All right. Where you have 3 generations on there. All right. You have a picture of Blake Griffin and his father. All right. His mother and his father. His father is a so-called Haitian. All right. A Levite. All right. And there's a really dark skinned man. All right. Now he wound up having a child, which is Blake Griffin, with a woman that looks like an Edomite. All right. Now, because I don't know what his mother's race is, and it really don't matter. But nevertheless, she looked like an Edomite, like a so-called white woman. Right. Now, if you know who Blake Griffin, the basketball player, is, he's like a light skinned looking man. He looks like a mixed person. Right. Now, Blake Griffin wound up having a baby with a woman that looks like a so-called Edomite. Well, looks like an Edomite, a so-called white woman, right? So their child comes out looking like Macaulay Culkin, like the kid from Home Alone, blonde hair, blue eyes, right? Now, you just see him by himself, you will say, oh, that's a so-called white man. So let's just play this out, And this is why we don't go on skin color. We're not one of those type of camps that you see people walk by and you just point out, oh, you so-called white man, you going into slavery, this and that, you know what I'm saying? Well, in general, Esau is going into slavery, but nevertheless, just because they walking by, we try the spirit by the spirit. All right. But let me grab that real quick. Where's that? Romans. This is Romans 8:16. It says the spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High. All right. So beyond the skin color, it's not a thing about our skin color. All right. This is really, it's a spiritual thing. All right. And not to get caught up with how they say in church, oh, we spiritual Israelites, we spiritual children of God. It's not like that. All right. What we're talking about is, if you want to go scientific, all right, the Most High is going to go do a DNA test. All right. If you got the right DNA inside your body, your ass is, you good. You know what I'm saying? Not to say you good. You got to be of the elect, but nevertheless, you an Israelite. All right. Basically, this is what is going to, boil down to. The Most High is going to go through and do a DNA test. All right. You have to have the bloodline of the Israelites inside of you. All right. Now, how do I say? Because you can't necessarily do a DNA test on somebody, like just, if you go to the doctor and they do a DNA test and they be like, you are the father, you aren't the father. All right. Now, when we on the highways and the byways, we do DNA tests on the highways and the byways. It'll be like a spiritual DNA test. You spiritually discern a person's spirit. Jake is going to be Jake no matter what. You can't hide Jake no matter what Jake look like. Jake could be looking, and when I say Jake, I mean the Israelite. All right. So you can have a spirit of an Israelite. So for example, like I was giving the Blake Griffin example, right? His son looking like the boy from Home Alone, even though he looked like a little white boy. All right. His spirit inside of him is not going to be able to, he's not going to be able to hide that he's Jake. No matter what skin color you put on top of them, they're not going to be able to hide that they Jake. All right. They're going to always do some Jake shit. You know what I'm saying? And then moreover, this so-called white boy going to stick out more than all these other white boys because he's going to be different from all the other white boys. They're going to all look at him a little weird, like, what's wrong with him? Something a little different than him, about him. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, when this thing, like I said, this thing isn't about a skin color thing. All right. So sometimes you see, or for another example, Barack Obama. Barack Obama looks exactly like the people we talking about. You so-called Negroes, you so-called black people, right? When we say, oh, this is, you so-called just one of the tribes, you so-called black people, you Israelites. Well, is Barack Obama look like a so-called black person, but he's not an Israelite, all right? Because his father's a Hamite, all right? Or a so-called African, all right? But just because he look like us don't mean he is the same as us, all right? Same with shit, you know what I'm saying? We can see this in a smaller light. Michael Jackson, he no longer look like us, but it's still a Israelite, all right? No matter how he look, he looked like a white woman, but he still move and sound like a damn Jake. Nobody else can do it like Jake can do it, all right? We the salt of the earth, all right? There's something different about us, so you can't hide us no matter what we look like, all right? We scattered all over the whole four corners of the earth, so you can even find us, you can YouTube this, black people and then you put different places like black people in China, black people in Japan, black people in Russia, black people in Africa, right? Now, when you go into black people in Africa, you'll see like, let's say children dancing, right? Now you might have about 3 or 4 Jakes, in a group about 10 different Africans, and they all dancing. They all doing the same dance moves, but it's something about Jake where Jake moves will look a little different than everybody else's moves. Jake will just be getting down, Jake don't look like he trying to do this shit. Jake just, how they say Jake just in the zone right now. Jake getting down while everybody else over there trying to make sure they getting their little moves and they cuts just right. You know what I'm saying? Jake don't give a fuck. He just in the zone. You know what I'm saying? So you'll be able to tell just by, certain things in his spirit, and just certain things that we do in his spirit. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, that's Jake. Jake, you understand how we get down. You see what I'm saying? It's just like, if you're a so-called black person, right? You can go through a so-called Mexican hood, right? And you see certain things that they do that you're not normally used to seeing. And you can automatically relate to what they're doing. You roll through a Mexican hood and you see some so-called Mexicans sitting on the porch or sitting out in the front yard. They got the little table out front. They got some beer or whatever, maybe playing some dominoes or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? The so-called black man rolled by. He ain't really alarmed. He was like, oh, that's just Jake getting down. They understand what's going on. But you roll by and you see some white folks like that. You don't quite understand them like that. You be like, what the fuck are they doing? Or white people roll through the hood. They be all locking their doors. They be all scary. Like, this is just where these motherfuckers live at. You know what I'm saying? It's something a little different. You know what I'm saying? Our spirit is a little different. Sometimes we have these things. Nah, bro. You hang out with some white folks or whatever, whatnot. You like, nah, bro, we don't do all that. We ain't into all of that. Nah, cause we ain't into all of that. You know what I'm saying? Jake just do certain shit. So our spirit bear witness. You know what I'm saying? Or things happen on the news. There was a massive school shooting today. What Jake always, well, we know who that was just based off of the crime. Because why? The spirit bear witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High. We all do certain things a certain types of way. You know what I'm saying? Even in our wickedness, right? You see any of these musicians or these celebrities and stuff like that. First thing first they do when they win an award. First of all, I want to thank God. No matter how wicked they are, no matter what the fuck they doing, our people are, first and foremost, I want to thank God. I want to thank Jesus. That's our people, man. Our people do that. The so-called white man, they get out there. Oh, I want to thank my producer. I want to thank this, I want to thank that, I want to thank my hairstylist. The last person they want to thank is the Most High. All right. But our people, don't, like I said, no matter how much wickedness they in, you know what I'm saying, they still want to thank the Most High. You know what I mean? But nevertheless, it's going into our spirit. You know, that's one of the main DNA tests that we would give. You know, we would, question certain people. You know what I'm saying? Again, we could be on the highways and the byways, and there's a so-called white person that done rolled up on us. All right. But they listening, they watching, they understanding, you know what I'm saying? They getting what we saying, whatever, whatnot. We would have to be like, well, wait a minute. This not a so-called white person, even though he looks like a so-called white person. All right. This person is got a spirit of an Israelite. All right. Now, when you go back to certain accounts in the scriptures where people were actually given leprosy. All right. Like I can't think of what this guy's name was, but nevertheless, he didn't even thank the priest, and he wound up catching leprosy. But him and his family afterwards. But Miriam as well. Right. So we'll use Miriam for an example. Right. Miriam would be a so-called Haitian. Right. They was Levites. Right. They would be so-called Haitians, like really dark-skinned people. Right. Now, Miriam, right, was wound up clowning Moses for marrying, I believe, the Ethiopian woman. And she was smitten with leprosy. All right. So to understand leprosy or so-called white people's skin. All right. Again, there's really no such thing as white people. All right. First of all, there's no such thing as white people or black people in them terminologies that they give us. However, when you look at white people and their white skin, that's not even nothing really, like to say, nothing really different. You see what I'm saying? It's not really a different person. They like the same people. They just, you see somebody with what they call vitiligo, or they getting these skin patches or whatever, whatnot. You'll see black people getting white spots all over them. That's the same thing as what so-called white people have. All right. It's just that they will be what the scriptures call a clean leper. They completely white all over. They don't have, they're not black with white spots, here and there, here and there. They completely, have white spots all over their complete body. So they just look like a straight up white person. Right. And here in America, they just turn white people. Right. They're not even white in color. But nevertheless, again, going into leprosy, this isn't really a separate race of people or whatever, whatnot, how we think of it today. Oh, well, they have this DNA, so they got that. No, it's more or less like a disease, right? Let's say if you have a disease where, let's say, genetically, your children all have, they missing an arm, or they all dwarfs, or they all, let's say midgets or something like that, right? Now, you wouldn't classify that as a different race of people because, every time you have a child, they all born with dwarfism. No, you see what I'm saying? You would just be like, okay, well, they, whatever race they are, they just so-called dwarfs or whatever, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But you wouldn't call that a whole different race. All right. But nevertheless, Esau, all right, is the so-called white man, all right, has leprosy. All right. So this is just a skin condition. All right. So we need to break this whole thing about colorism of, oh, he looked like this, so he's that, or he was born over here, so he's that, or he speak this language and he's that. It's not about that. Ultimately, when it goes down, it's about a bloodline. All right. It's going into what type of DNA is in you. All right. Because it all starts from it goes from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. All right. Now, the Israelites are all the seeds of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. All right. Meaning that all the Israelites come from that same sperm line that come from Jacob. All right. No matter what you look like nowadays on this here side of the earth now, because we had all these different race mixing and so on and so forth. All right. Let me grab, I'll get to that. So let me, paint this here picture of how we got to where we at now. All right. No, let me go back. Let me start here at the end because I know that this may be a stumbling block to some people. All right. So this is Revelation 7:1. It says, and after these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor the sea, nor any tree. All right. Now this is basically coming up to what? Judgment day, destruction. All right. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living power. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our power in their foreheads. All right. This is going into the people that's going to be saved. All right. So normally in the church, people will start reading through this and they'll get to a certain passage down here and they'll think that this is talking about everybody in the world. All right. So we're going to go through all of this and we're going to show you that this isn't talking about, when they talk about the Gentiles and things like that. This is not talking about everybody in the world. All right. So because like I did a video not too long ago talking about what is salvation and who needs it. You see what I'm saying? You have to be in a certain type of condition in order to get something. Like, who need bail money? Only people who need bail money is the motherfuckers that's in jail. You see what I'm saying? Somebody that's not in jail don't need no bail money, right? It says, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000. All right, so this is going back to the 144,000. And where did they come from? It says, of all the tribes of the children of Israel. All right, so you have to be an Israelite in order to be saved. All right, that's the end all be all. Nobody else is going to wind up being saved. It's going to be out of no other nation on the planet Earth except for the nation of Israel. All right. Again, you have to, and now that might sound harsh on a surface level, but just rephrase it. Nobody gonna get bail except for the motherfuckers that's locked up in jail, right? The only people that's really locked up in jail is the Israelites. So they the only ones that really need bail money, right? These are the only people that's gonna wind up being saved. And we did a lesson on, like I said, we did a lesson on what is salvation and who needs it, all right? And when you go back to that video, you'll understand why, why it makes sense that only the Israelites are gonna be saved, all right? Verse 5. All right, it says, and I'm not going to actually read all of this through. I'm going to just read verse 5. It says, of the tribe of Judah was sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben was sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Gad was sealed 12,000. All right, now it's going to go through each of the 12 tribes, and there's 12,000 out of each of the 12 tribes, which is going to make up the 144,000. All right, now down here to the point, verse 9, it says, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number. All right, this is going into the 1/3 because we was just reading about the 144,000. This is the 1/3 that's going to be saved. All right, it says, and after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Right, so a lot of Christians will read this. All right, and they'll think of, because it says of all nations, all kindreds, all people, and all tongues. All right. So on the face value, it will, the people will be like, well, that means people in China could be saved. All right. If you in different nations, the so-called white man here in America and the so-called white man in Russia can both be saved because they're the same people, but they just in different nations or different kindreds. That means the so-called white man can be saved and the so-called Chinese man can be saved. All right. And peoples in tongues, the different races and the different languages. If you speak different languages in different places, you can be saved too. All right. So people stumble over these things because it says, it was going to be a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations, kindreds, and peoples and tongues. All right. These people are going to wind up being saved. All right. So they stumble over that. All right. But I mean, in actuality, that's exactly what it's saying. But again, you have to have the understanding in the context of what it's really talking about. Like I said, go back to the video where I was talking about what is salvation and who needs it. Right. Because you have to understand, again, how do I say, the conditions of the people and what conditions they will be in order for this to qualify for them. Again, for the example, you trying to give somebody bail money, somebody try to give me bail money right now. I'm like, bro, I don't really need bail money. I'm not in jail. You might want to go down to the prison and go ask those motherfuckers who need bail money because they the ones need bail money. You know what I'm saying? Or the EMS roll up. You see what I'm saying? The EMS roll up to my house and they be like, yo, yeah, you need some help. Like, I don't need the EMS. I'm not dying or nothing like that. You might want to go next door. Maybe they need the EMS before they have a heart attack and they die over there. You see what I'm saying? The emergency's over there, not over here. My house ain't burning down. Don't send a fire truck to my house. They house over there burning down. Go put their fire out. They need your services. They need your help. They are in trouble. All right. So you have to go back to find out who these people are that would be in this here condition. So let me read this again and we'll find out how these people got into this condition. Revelation 7:9, it says, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. All right. So we're going to get into how these people, where these people of all these different nations, kindreds, and tongues, who these people are going to be, which we already read up here at the top where it says they was going to be from all the tribes of Israel. All right. But nevertheless, down here is the stumbling block. They talk about the Israelites at first. They name all the tribes at first. And in the Christian churches, they're like, but down here it's talking about the Gentiles where we're grafted in it. All right. So we're going to go ahead and squash that. Let's go back to the beginning of how these people got to where they get. All right. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 15. It says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. All right. And that's what happened. We wound up not keeping his commandments, law, statutes, commandments. And then all these curses came upon us. All right. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 64. And Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even to the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. All right. Let me jump down to verse 68. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships by the way of I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. All right. So going back up to verse 64 says, and Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth, even unto the other. All right. So we was going to be scattered into the four corners of the earth, and we was going to be sold into slavery into these different nations, into the four corners of the earth. All right. So as you can go ahead and start to see this here picture coming full circle. All right. So if there was going to be Israelites that was going to be saved from out of all nations, out of all kindreds, out of all peoples, out of all tongues, that would only make sense if beforehand, all right, if we was going to be, let's say we was in a gang, right? Our gang has got 30 members in a gang, right? Now we all got busted by the police. Let's just say the police. Now we all got sent to prison, but now we all got sent to different prisons around the damn United States. Now, when we all get out of prison, we're going to all come back to the same block, even though we were scattered, you know, in one prison in Delaware, one prison in New York, one prison in California, one prison in Colorado, one prison in Montana. You see what I'm saying? Now, all of a sudden, we getting all brought back to where, you know, our normal block is at. You know what I'm saying? We the Miami boys or whatever. So we, you know, we're going to, once we get out of prison, we're going to all mount back up over there, even though we was imprisoned in different locations in different states. We're going to go right back to where we originated from. All right. So you have to keep this here in mind. Like I said, the Most High said he was going to scatter us into the four corners of the earth, into every nation. All right. Because of the curses that will fall upon us, because we wouldn't keep the law, statutes, and commandments. All right. Then he said that, well, hold on. Let me grab something else, because, you know, a lot of people talk about the so-called Native American Indians, how, oh, this didn't happen to them as well either. But nevertheless, hey, man, they wound up catching slavery too. But nevertheless, let's talk about how they got over here to the Americas real quick. All right. Because just to give a further point of how we were spread around the world, and then how things happen. All right. So as you know, the so-called Native Americans, they didn't speak English. All right. They didn't speak Spanish. They didn't speak these different languages until the so-called white man came over here. All right. So let me go down to Second Esdras. This is in the Apocrypha. This is Second Esdras 13 and 39. It says, now this is going into the interpretation of this here dream, all right? Or this vision that Ezra saw. So it's Second Esdras 13 and 39. It says, whereas thou hast saw that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, all right? Now, again, this is actually going into the breakdown of what the vision he saw. So this is actually the breakdown of it, all right? So it says, verse 40, those are the 10 tribes. All right. Now you would hear this in regular Christianity or whatever, whatnot, talking about the lost 10 tribes or the 10 tribes or the lost tribes. All right. Where they was like, well, we don't know where these people went, because in reality, all right, when Yahushua was on the scene, only the southern kingdom was there, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. All right. So like when you read in the New Testament, you really didn't have the northern kingdom over there. You might have had a couple of them here and there. But for the most part, none of the 10 tribes wasn't even over there at that point in time. All right. And this is the history of them and where they went from way early off, and to who these people were in the Americas when Columbus and them came. All right. And this is why this here portion was taken out of the Bible, the Apocrypha, because there's so much history in there that you couldn't sit here and read this here book and be like, you know, especially the Bible in its entirety, the Old Testament, New Testament with the Apocrypha. All right. And dismiss this as a fairy tale book, because there's so much, how do you say, artifacts and evidence in here that you can just look up the history and you're like, oh, damn, it just lines clear up, you know? So Second Esdras 13 and 40, it says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive. All right. So now when you go back into our history, all right, now the northern kingdom wound up going into captivity first. They went into captivity before the southern kingdom. They went into captivity into Assyria. All right. Now it says, and he carried them over the water, so they came into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. All right. So put this in perspective. The northern kingdom went into captivity under the Assyrians. All right. But then after their captivity was done, they was like, you know what? Fuck it. We don't want to live around these damn heathen no more, because we keep getting fucked up living around them. Let us go to a far land where no man has ever dwelt before. We're going to live over there so that we can. Well, let me read verse 42. Or let me read this again, verse 41. But they took counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they may keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. All right. So the northern kingdom, all right, which we tell you today is the so-called Native Americans and the so-called Latino tribes. All right. Now, put all this shit together in your head. Who the fuck was these people when the so-called white man came over here? There was already people over here, right? And so-called, according to everybody else, that these people don't have no history. They don't know where the fuck they came from, right? They'd be like, well, we don't know how they got over there. Maybe they walked across a ice bridge or whatever, whatnot. Nah, man. How these people got to the Americas is written right here in their scriptures, all right? But see, they took it out and they was like, well, they came to this new land. You know, what Columbus said, we go into the new world where no man never dwelt before, but there was people there already. They had civilizations, building statutes, everything. And they also brought Hebrew interpreters. All right. Not only that, they also, there's one movie where they was like, where they actually referenced this, and it was like, they was going to coming to America. And it was like, basically based off of the fact that like, yeah, I know it's something over there because I read it in the book of Ezra, the prophet Ezra, and this is what they was reading right here, because hey, right here is letting you know where the so-called Native Americans would be at. All right. So it says, verse 43, and they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river, for the Most High had showed signs for them. He held still the floods till they were passed over. All right. So, hey, the Most High showed them different signs and things, just like Columbus and them when they came over here. You know, they said that they followed a chariot over here. All right. It says, and this is all, how do I say, biblical and prophecy, because why? They was like, let me see. Actually, I don't think, yet we hadn't got there yet. All right, verse 45, it says, for through that country, there was a great way to go, namely a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth. All right, and they're telling you is, exactly how long it would take to get here, a year and a half to get here. And I believe, what was that? Nah, never mind. I was gonna say it was some, I can't think of what journey it was, but, it would be routed. It would be like a 3-year journey or whatever it was, whatnot, because it was basically like a trade. You know, they was going and coming back. You know what I'm saying? And I believe, was it Solomon or something like that, where it had every couple years, you know, some boats would be coming back, you know what I'm saying, with different things, you know, and it would be the same amount of time that they would be coming over here. All right. This is how they had certain animals and things like that, that you would only find over here in America that they had over there in those times. All right. But nevertheless, continuing on, it says, they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places by the river, for the Most High had showed signs for them and had held still the floods till they were passed over. For through that country, there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth. Verse 46, then dwelt they there until the latter times, and now when they shall begin to come. Who is going to begin to come? The so-called white man was going to begin to come, because if you put yourself in the so-called Native American shoes, they was living over here in the Americas shit since well over 2,000 years. All right, because they was living over here before Yahushua came on the scene. They was living over here before really we went off into Babylon. You see what I'm saying? Like, yo, they was, like I said, they went into captivity before the Southern Kingdom went into captivity. All right. So like all the different captivities you read about from Babylon, Medo-Persia, on that off into Greece and to Rome, that whole time the so-called Native Americans, they was, or the Northern Kingdom, they was already over here. All right. And they was chilling over here by themselves. All right. Until when? It says they dwelt there until the latter time. Now when they shall begin to come. Who was going to come over to this here landmass? Because like I said, the so-called natives and the Latinos was over here by themselves. And who wound up coming over here? All right. In the end time, when Esau would come into power, the so-called white man came over here with Columbus and them. This is when they all started coming over here. All right. And that's what they said when they came over here. We're going to a new land where no man has dwelt before. All right. They come into the new world. But then what they found over here, they found there was a civilization of people already over here. All right. And when you look at their clothing and things like that, they was wearing the same things that we, you know, like you see them in the Lord and the highways and the byways in our garments today. It's the same thing that the so-called Latinos and the Native Americans was wearing with the fringes and everything. All right. You had the Native Americans keeping the Passover. They was keeping a couple of the high holy days. They was speaking, you know, some of their language was certain words was in Hebrew as well. Like I said, they brought over Hebrew interpreters. All right. So going into all that to say this, that, you know, the so-called Native Americans was brought over here. All right. So, well, they came over here. All right. Now, when you had this transatlantic slave trade happen, all right, before the transatlantic slave trade happened, they was enslaving the Native American Indians over here and then trading them off into Europe. So you had the natives that was already over here being spread to the other side of the globe before the so-called Southern the Southern Kingdom, the so-called Negroes, all right, was even brought over to this here side for the transatlantic slave trade to take place. All right. So you already starting to see that we was being spread all over the whole earth at this point in time. All right. So I'm going to go from here to actually the first book of Ezra. See now, hey, if it's a stumbling block to people, you know, reading in the Apocrypha, we was just reading the book of Second Ezra, right? You know, you got First and Second Ezra, which is actually like Ezra 2 and 3. Now we're gonna go into the book of Ezra, right? Which is the same person, right? It's just actually spelled a little different way, like how we was just reading Oshea, which is like Hosea. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, we're gonna go into Ezra 2. No. It's like, yeah, Ezra 9 and 2. Actually, I'm gonna start it at the top. God. Yep. This is Ezra 9, 1 through 7. It says, now when these things, now again, you have to take into account that we was taken into captivity into the four corners of the earth. Now we was reading about in Deuteronomy 28. All right, that happened at the end time. All right, when we came over here at the final time. All right, now, but before that, we had these other captivities. All right, where these same things was happening unto us. All right, so before we even came over here, in the transatlantic slave trade, we was already being scattered and mixed over there. Also, to go back when the before the transatlantic slave trade, you had like the sub-Saharan slave trade with the Arabs and stuff like that. You know, they was trading us and selling us over into like Europe and Asia and all that. They was trading us over into further east more than west. All right. Nevertheless, you got Ezra 9 and 1. It says, now when these things were done, the princes came to me saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands. All right. So what? We was already scattered into all these different nations, into these different people. All right. But what? The scripture here is saying that our people have not separated themselves from the people of the land. So we joined ourselves to them. Like here in America, we would say, oh, they Americanized, you know, or for instance, you know, you might have some Jake men and be like, you know what? I don't really like these Americanized women. You see what I'm saying? Meaning like you might, or sometimes you see Jake men like, man, go to like Brazil or some shit. Go get your woman out there, or go get you one of these Spanish women out into their country, because they still, you know, they're not Americanized. They're not, you know, brainwashed by the ways of this American culture. You know what I'm saying? Where a woman could walk around with her ass and shit all hanging out, and she a married woman, and she walking around a fucking group of men with her ass and titties all hanging out and shit. And ain't nothing supposed to be wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of shit? But nevertheless, this is the type of shit that happens when we be around these different people. All right. We don't necessarily have to mingle our seed with them. But nevertheless, first and foremost, we can pick up their customs and start doing the shit that they doing. All right. Which lead us to start picking up their language, their customs. All right. Their clothing, eating their food and stuff like that. So even though we might not look like them, we're going to start partaking into the shit that they partaking in. Say, for instance, like, let's say America, right? When you say America, modern days today, let's just say America was just white people, right? Because this is all a debacle, because you got the so-called, how they call them, the Native Americans. All right. Then you got the Americans. The Americans didn't fight the Native Americans. You see what I'm saying? These Edomites or Europeans wound up, you know, coming over here. But nevertheless, let's just say all of America is so-called white, right? Or white people, right? But I was born over here in America, but you see what I'm saying? And I got American tendencies, right? I speak the American language, eat basically American food, you know, have basically American culture, whatever, whatnot. You know, the music that we listen to is the music that you would hear here in America, things like that. All right. But nevertheless, that's because we was mingled here in America, but I wasn't mixed with, like, you know, I don't have, you know, both my parents basically are so-called black people. You see what I'm saying? So I didn't have to actually have my race being mixed from being in a land mixed with other people, but yet the culture and everything else is already rubbed off on me. You see what I'm saying? First of all, our being an Israelite, you know, this was taken out of us according to Psalms 83. But you get the picture of what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? Or if some Chinese people came over here, had some kids over here, within a couple generations, you know what I'm saying? They wouldn't really have a lot of their heritage because they would start picking up ways of America. All right. Now, on the flip side to that is you could actually be in these here land masses. Let's say, I'll go over to China or whatever, whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And like, let's say my daughter, I got a daughter over there. Now my daughter getting with this Chinese man. Now they see from there on is going to be mingled with that. And you're going to have half, well, you're not going to have half shit. You're going to just basically have Moabite babies. All right. Or basically going into a confusion of face, basically based off of a skin tone or whatever, whatnot, like the Blake Griffin situation. Like I said, you see Blake Griffin's son, you might just think he a so-called white boy because why? We physically started mixing with these people. All right. We was physically mixing with them as far as sex wise. All right. So now you might see people on the face value. That's why we tell you, you know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, we say you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are the Israelites because that's who you are in general. But however, that's not excluding some people that, we're not saying Chinese people as a whole are the Israelites. But however, we were scattered into the four corners of the earth. I mean, I ain't gonna say there could be some Israelites over there. There has to be some Israelites over there, according to the scriptures. We were scattered into all nations. All right. So there has to be some Chinese people over there that look like Chinese. They could look like Chinese people. They might not look like Chinese people. But nevertheless, there will probably be some Chinese people that look straight up Chinese like a motherfucker, speak Chinese, eat Chinese, love Chinese music. Everything they do is Chinese, but something inside their spirit, all right, is because that's where they was growing up at. They are a product of their environment. All right. But where they grew up at is basically, they're a product of the environment where they grew up at, but nevertheless, their spirit inside is an Israelite spirit. All right. Nevertheless, matter of fact, there's a place I got to go to because I got a goddamn nail in my tire. I had to fuck that shit. But nevertheless, the tire place I'm gonna go to, right? It's a bunch of damn, what tribe are they? They're one of the Hispanic tribes. They're not so-called Mexicans, but nevertheless, I think they might be either Dominicans, so-called Dominicans or something like that. But nevertheless, there's two of these guys over there. Now I know that they can come in lighter or darker colors, you know what I'm saying? Because, around them they're a bunch of family. Nevertheless, some of them are darker and some of them are lighter, and the majority of them are a lot darker. All right, but they still have a so-called Hispanic look to them. But there's like two of them over there that look straight up like so-called black men, right? Now, which I understand they could also look like that as well. However, they look like straight up black men, and until they open their mouth, you would think that they just so-called black men. All right. But nevertheless, according to like the slave trade, here in Mexico, or not here in Mexico, but in Mexico as well, you have the same thing. You have some people that look like so-called black people over there, but they speak Spanish. But what? They think that they so-called Mexicans or whatever, whatnot, not knowing that they was actually brought over there from way in the past, mingle with their seed, even though they all Israelites. You see what I'm saying? But, they seem to be Mexican. They take on the so-called Mexican traits, but nevertheless, they could be from the tribe of Judah. All right. But you couldn't just be like, well, I look Mexican. I speak Spanish, whatever, whatnot. I'm from the tribe. I'm Mexican. Well, you might not be Mexican. All right. You actually might be, from the tribe of Judah or whatever, whatnot. You know what I mean? But we're not really trying to say, for you Israelites, you have to know exactly which tribe you from, because like I said, we was all scattered. You might not know exactly which tribe you from. However, going back to what we was reading in Romans, the spirit bear witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High. All right. So even though you might look like, not saying, one Israelite looking like another Israelite, but let's say you don't even look like an Israelite, like you're a fucking Chinese person, an African person. All right. They're going to have a certain spirit that's on them that's going to be identical to the Israelite spirit. All right. So now let me reread this again. Ezra 9:1. Now, when these things were done, the princes came to me saying that the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands. Do according to the abominations, even the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites. For they have taken their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. And yea, the hand of the princes and the rulers have been the chief in this trespass. All right. So it says, for they have taken their daughters for themselves and for their sons. Now, this isn't really changing the fact that these people are Israelites. All right. Because they basically taking the women. Right. It's not the other way around. It wasn't like Israelite women was getting pounded out by Moabite men, which in turn, the seed would be a Moabite child. All right. That Israelite woman, and basically, hey, you got a Moabite child now. You see what I'm saying? You're not really producing Israelites. You see what I'm saying? Because the seed is, you are who your father is. All right. Just like how modern day today in America. All right. If you have a baby here in America, right? That baby gonna get the father's last name, right? Or if you wind up getting married here in America, you gonna get that your husband's last name, right? But nevertheless, this is all going back to where you get your pedigree from, because you come from your father's sperm anyway. You know, that's who you are. All right. But nevertheless, it says, for they have taken their daughters for themselves and for their sons. All right. So they taking their women and they mingling them. So what's really happening here? They still Israelites. All right. But what now? They might not look like Israelites. They might have to, I call it the Blake Griffin effect. You see what I'm saying? Blake Griffin fathered and took one of these damn heathen women. All right. Had sex with her. Now Blake Griffin don't even look like his father looked no more, you know? So if we were to say back in the days, like, you know what? The Haitians are these dark skinned black people, only dark skinned black people. Well, what happened here? We started mingling our seed. He's still a so-called Haitian. All right. But yet and still, he don't look like one no more. All right. Then Blake Griffin had a child with another so-called white woman. Now the child looked like a so-called white person. Now, if we was to sit here and say all white people based off of skin color, you all Edomites, and all you black people based off of skin color, you Israelites, we would be all fucked up, because why? What we're reading right here. It says, for they have taken their daughters for themselves and their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. That's exactly what Blake Griffin's father did. Same thing Blake Griffin did. And now that's the product of what you get is Blake Griffin's son. You get this little blonde hair, blue eyed white boy. All right. But he's not a white boy. He's an Israelite. In fact, he's a Levite. All right. He's basically a so-called Haitian. All right. And you would see so-called Haitians, you know what I'm saying? Like, damn, y'all some real dark skinned so-called black people. Well, how would you say that you really dark skinned so-called black people, but you see this so-called white boy and you over here flipping out about it? Because, you know, you stumbling at the stumbling block of the skin color, you know, the same thing that happens to our Native American brethren. Because why? So-called black people look at our skin color and our hair texture and things like that, and they look at the so-called Native Americans and the Latinos, and they'll notice that they skin color is a lot lighter. All right, their hair texture is like the so-called white man. So they'd be like, oh, they was mixed with the so-called white man. They like the so-called white man. All right, but yet and still, when we know that the same shit happened to our people. All right, but we're not just calling our people all so-called white people like that. Nah. You know what I'm saying? It's going back into what the spirit bear witness with the spirit. All right. It's easy enough to, you know, if you stick around somebody long enough, you'll be able to tell, oh, this motherfucker ain't got the spirit of Israelite on them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you got to be a spirit of Israelite is not having a spirit of the prophets. All right. Not saying that you're going to be holier than thou. You're going to just be keeping all the laws, statutes, commandments. Nah, that ain't what we talking about. You know what I'm saying? When you have a spirit of Israelite, again, you can't hide it. Like, you know, like in the truth, we be like, man, look at Jake. That's Jake. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you watch our last video at camp, you seen Jake riding through in the goddamn drop top dunk, right? He had one of them dunks riding through, jamming some shit, and we like, that's Jake. You know, that's Jake right there. You know what I'm saying? We'd be saying that because, why? We'd be giving him a spiritual DNA test. Obviously, this Jake actually looked like a Jake, but nevertheless. And then sometimes we see some old white folk. We seen an old white dude out there with some fly ass shoes on, high color shoes and shit like that. There's a dude out here. Matter of fact, it's another dude. Man, if you ever find this dude, man, this shit is funny as hell. It's a white dude out here in Florida somewhere, be going to all the black people events. This motherfucker be riding in like some thugged out ass Dodge Magnum with some like big ass rims on it. This motherfucker be cleaner than most Jake that you know. And he always be riding with like a car full of bad, thick ass black bitches. You see what I'm saying? Like, ain't no fucking white man gonna do no shit like that. Even if the so-called white man got money like that. That's the difference between Jake and between Esau, right? Esau actually be having a lot of money, but Esau be walking around with his broke ass looking Dockers on, a broke ass Guy Harvey shirt on, and some fucking flip flops and an old ass car with $2 million in the bank. You see what I'm saying? Esau be walking around looking dirty as fuck. You know what I'm saying? But Jake be broker than a bitch. Jake be borrowing some money. But guess what? Jake gonna go down to the damn corner store, go get him a clean ass white t-shirt, make sure his shoes is clean, and he gonna be on. He gonna look like $1 million, even though he ain't got no money. So when you see a so-called white man, all right, trying to flash and show his money like that, that's not in character with the so-called white man, because we see in general with all of them, in general, the most of them got plenty of money, but they all look broke. They all be walking around like they ain't got no money. They be trying to hide it. But Jake, you see Jake be stunting like a motherfucker. Jake will have a whole man, Jake will be wearing, bruh, Jake can't pay their damn bills, but they got a whole bunch of jewelry around their goddamn neck and shit. You know what I'm saying? Jake riding on some 26s and shit, but can't feed their baby nothing like that. You see what I'm saying? So that's inside of Jake's spirit to be stunting and showing off like that. You see what I'm saying? So when you see things out of the normal, like an older white dude, I'm not talking about no young white boy doing this. I'm talking about probably like a mid 30 to early 40-year-old white dude, look like motherfucking Bill Gates with glasses on and shit, but clean as fuck. Just imagine that. Bill Gates, you see what I'm saying? Riding in a motherfucking Dodge Magnum on some 26s and shit with some half naked black bitches, titties and ass hanging all out, twerking in their car. That's not the spirit of an Edomite. That's just, Esau, what are these niggers doing? That's the spirit of a so-called white man. So it's easy to be able to give somebody a spiritual DNA test by like, oh, that's some shit Jake would do. You see what I'm saying? You see these Arabs and shit like that, like DJ Khaled, right? You see what I'm saying? I don't really know if he a Jake, but I would believe that this motherfucker Jake. This motherfucker got a harder shoe collection than most so-called black people. I ain't even into shoes and shit like that, but you see how he be doing and jamming our music. You ain't seen no other Arabs and shit come over here with that shit like that. You see what I'm saying? You got a whole fucking Middle East full of those motherfuckers, but none of them is coming over here with no music like that. We only got one DJ Khaled. Or I flip it and reverse it when you talk about these so-called Africans, all right? We're not the same as them because look, they didn't have their history beaten out of them like we did to us, but yet and still you have us on a different scene. You got everybody around the world trying to imitate a Beyonce, a Michael Jackson, a Michael Jordan, a LeBron James and shit like that. If we was all Africans, there's a small amount of us over here comparably to what's in Africa. You got a whole fucking continent, multiple countries, all right? How come you don't have at least one country full of Michael Jacksons, one country full of Beyoncés, one country full of LeBron James? You see what I'm saying? We're not the same people. Our spirit is different than a spirit. You see what I'm saying? We had our whole culture beaten out of us. We had to rebuild and reprogram, and yet we still the trendsetters on the planet Earth. But you got a whole continent full of the same people, and they ain't hitting on shit over there. They trying to pretend to be us over here. Come on, man. You can spiritually tell you that we are different people, man. All right. So, when people be like, oh, we the same as the Africans. Nah, bro, we don't got the same spirit of these stupid motherfuckers, man. Where they flavor at? What the fuck is they doing? Why they not on TV trend setting shit? You know what I'm saying? Oh, they poor, they in Africa, they ain't got shit. Nigga, we poor in the hood, we ain't got shit, nigga. You see what I'm saying? That's when we at the best, when we ain't got shit. We gotta turn nothing into something. We gonna flip it. We gonna make something work, baby. That's just Jake. That's how we do. That's what I'm saying. Our spirit bear witness with the spirit that we are the children of the Most High. We gonna make something out of nothing, man. In the beginning, man, let me get that, man, because that's some real spiritual shit. You got to be able to discern these things, man. It says, in the beginning, the Most High created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the spirit of the Most High moved upon the face of the earth. All right. And Yahweh, and the Most High said, let there be light. And there was light. And the Most High said, saw the light and it was good. And the Most High divided the light from the darkness. All right. Going into all that. Now we know that was actually the angels with Yahushua. But nevertheless, in the beginning, there was nothing. But what? The super Jakes came through and was like, we're going to make something out of nothing, man. All right, but what? These so-called white people want to tell you about the Big Bang and all that. Nigga, no. You see what I'm saying? We're going to make everything perfect, man. We're going to make something work out of the shit that we got. We're going to turn lemon into lemonades. All right, so going into what? Spiritually discerning these people, man. This is how Jake going to be. And you're going to see us around the whole planet Earth. Every country and place of planet Earth got a so-called poor population. And you can see inside this poor population, and I'm not talking about just because they poor, they Israelites, but inside this poor population, look at some of the ingenuity and the things that they come up with. Like, that got to be Jake right there. You see Jake doing some kind of crazy shit. We gonna make it happen, bro. We gonna fucking make it happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just telling you, man, just looking at different people around the world doing different type of shit, and you see yourself inside of these people that don't speak the same language on the whole other side, like, yo, I know exactly why the fuck they doing that shit. You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I get it. I know what they doing. You know what I'm saying? That's the same shit, man. It's the same spirit bearer witness. But what? We wound up mixing our seed with them. All right. So let me go back to Ezra 9:2. It says, for they have taken their daughters for themselves and their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hands of the princes and the rulers have been the chief of this trespass. And when I heard this thing, I rent my garment and my mantle and plucked off the hair of my head and my beard and sat down astonished. All right. Because why? We wind up mixing and mingling our seeds with these different people. We wind up becoming just like these people. We like here today, we becoming Americanized. That's why I was like, the scriptures say, come out of her, my people. All right. So that we won't be partakers in her sins. Not saying, oh, leave America, but what? You have become Americanized. Come up out of being Americanized and be Yahweh Shem Yahushua, follow his laws, statutes, commandments, basically. You see what I'm saying? There's two different ways of living. Here in America, oh, you can eat pork. You can be a homosexual. You can sleep with another man's wife. But what? The laws, statutes, commandments command us not to do all that. All that's wicked abominations before the face of the Most High. All right. So what? This is, what we were supposed to do amongst these other nations. We were supposed to be separate from these different people. But what? We wind up mingling with them and so-called becoming an Americanized, or like back in the days, Hellenized. You see what I'm saying? This is why we was being called Greeks back in those days. We was following out all the customs of the Greeks, doing all the shit the Grecians was doing, naming our people after the Grecians and stuff like that. So that, why are you starting to rent your clothes and all this shit? Man, what the fuck is going on? You know what I'm saying? That's why he said and when I heard this, I rent my garment and my mantle and plucked off my hair of my head and my beard and sat down astonished. Like he didn't rip his damn shirt off, plucked his hair out and his beard out. Man, what the fuck are y'all niggas doing, man? You know what I'm saying? Now you motherfuckers looking Chinese and shit, speaking Greek and shit. Nigga, you don't even know who you are no more. You don't even got your heritage no more, man. What the fuck is Israel nowadays? Because y'all wanted to be like these niggas. And that was what our problem was from the jump street, man. We weren't supposed to have no king reigning over us, man. We were supposed to be following Yahweh, basically the Most High. But what? Our people wanted to be like the other nations and have a king set upon us. So what? The Most High was like, all right, well, the king basically have y'all working for him. Y'all gonna be a slave and this, and that, whatever. Hey, that's what we wound up getting, man. All right. It says, verse 4, they assembled unto me every one that trembled at the word of the Most High of Israel, because of the transgression of those that had been carried away, and I sat astonished until the even sacrifice. And at the even sacrifice, I arose up from my heaviness, and having rent my garment and my mantle, fell upon my knees and spread out my hands unto Yahweh my power, and said, O my power, I am ashamed and blush to lift up my face to thee. My power, for our iniquity are increased, even our head, and our trespass is grown up unto the heaven. Since the days of our fathers have we been in great trespass unto this day. For our iniquities have we, our kings and our priests have been delivered into the hand of the kings of the lands, to the sword, to captivity, to spoil, and to confusion the faces of this day. Like I said, because we wanted to have a king over us and stuff like that and be like these heathen. Hey, we was given over to the heathen for them to spoil us. All right. But what it says, and to confusion of face as it is to this day. All right. Going back up into this where it was like, yo, man, I'm ashamed of what's going on, because why? We done lost our laws, statutes, commandments. We lost our heritage. We lost who we were, trying to be like these goddamn heathen. All right. People have these certain things, man, I remember when I was younger, right? So my family, I got some Muslims actually in my family. I got like a set of cousins, right? Where basically like they whole household, they Muslims, right? So I got a cousin, and like these cousins are older than me. It's like my dad's first cousin. But nevertheless, when they would come down to my grandma's house and shit like that, and I didn't know what the fuck no Muslim was. And I really didn't know what no Muslim was until after 9/11, but this was way before that shit, right? And the only thing I knew different between my Muslim cousins and the rest of us was like, all right, well, they don't go to church with us. They don't eat pork. All the women all wear dresses. You know what I'm saying? They had their hair covered and so on and so forth, right? And that's the only thing I thought they was like, yo, we just have, I love when they come to town because I know we have two different breakfasts. You know what I'm saying? We'll have the breakfast with the grits and some pork sausage. Then we'll also have, for them, they'll have like fish and grits. So shit, we can rack up twice. We can have fish and sausage, right? But not knowing. But then I used to sit back and be like, man, I kind of want to be exclusive like them. They a little this and they a little that. They got their own thing. They're not like everybody. They a little separate. They don't eat pork. When people ask them, they don't eat pork. And all the women wear dresses. And so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? They got different types of names or whatever. I thought that they was different. So I thought they was so-called cooler. And I ain't want to be like that. Little did I know that my own heritage, I'm over here, you know what I'm saying, so-called jealous of what my cousins then picked up, because this was something they just happened to pick, their mama picked up. You know what I'm saying? It was like, yo, man, hold up. I want to be special like y'all, so on and so forth, not knowing that really the shit that they dealing with with the Muslim stuff is really like the law, statutes, commandments, the same shit that we got in our stuff. This is how our women's supposed to be dressed up, but not knowing that was actually my heritage. But I'm over here, like here it says, verse 6, and said, O my power, I am ashamed and blush to lift up my face to thee. My power, for our iniquities are increased, even our head, our trespasses grown up unto the heavens. So I'm over here ashamed, like, damn, man. I'm just like everybody else, like the rest of these fucking heathen. You know what I'm saying? My cousins, they in a special league or whatever, whatnot. They a little separate, a little different. Not knowing all along, me and my cousins, we all Israelites. We actually got something like, the Arabs, they actually kind of knew about some of the shit that was going on, but the Most High was not dealing with them. So they would have some of our law, statutes, commandments just from them knowing about the shit. But nevertheless, this was actually made for us. You know what I'm saying? They trying to have a knockoff of what was actually made for us. I got my cousins over here being Muslim and shit, trying to be righteous, but they really imitating who they really supposed to be. So going into this confusion of face, We over here looking at everybody else like, oh, they so special, they so this and that, not knowing that that's really supposed to be you. All right, you over here being these damn Americans or whatever, whatnot. You trying to put blonde hair in your hair, try to look like the so-called white man, and trying to look like these other nations and stuff. Like, bro, if you could actually see the Most High, right? If you could see the Most High, Yahushua, and what your people look like in righteousness and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, our people want to be, for so-called, black people want to be like Escobar or whatever. I mean, these people are of our tribes or whatever, whatnot, but they want to be different people from, I want to be John Gotti, the God. I want to be all these different people. But if you was to happen to know, this is what that white image of Jesus did to us. If you was to happen to know that your history before slavery and things like that, there was so-called black kings in Europe and things like that. You know what I'm saying? All kind of different things. You'd be like, oh shit, I want to be me. I don't want to be like these other people. I actually got a rich history, especially if you found out that you was an Israelite. You wouldn't want to be nobody else but your damn self. But what? Because we started mingling with these other people, mixing with these other nations, or becoming Americanized or Hellenized, or, you know what I'm saying? Not necessarily like, in my case, my parents, I don't have mixed parents or nothing like that. Both of my parents are so-called black people. However, I was still had this confusion of face over here in this here place because I was born here in America thinking I was American. You see what I'm saying? I got to now try to learn my actual culture because why? I was basically brainwashed into something else. So now what? I was growing up with the confusion of face, right? Even though that my skin color is the same skin color as we telling you, I'm not like Blake Griffin's son, all right, where he got a confusion of skin color as well too. But hey, neither one of us know who we were. All right, now I know who I am now, but beforehand I didn't know who I was. All right, because why? We was mingled over here. We thought we was Americans. All right, let me grab a couple more. We're gonna close out. Let's go back to that great multitude to give you a different example. Now this is Acts 2:5. It says now, and there was dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, or really Israelites, all right, mostly from the southern kingdom, all right, because like I said, the northern kingdom was already over here in America, all right. So it says there was dwelling in Jerusalem, basically Israelites, all right, devout men out of every nation under heaven. So these was all Israelites, mainly of the southern kingdom, right? Now it says devout men out of every nation under heaven. Now, when it's going to get down to saying these other nations, but when it says out of every nation, do it mean that these men are, let's say, Moabites or Ammonites because they come out of that nation? No, it's telling you off rip that these are Israelites. All right. They just live in different places. All right. This is like saying, look, black people need to come to America for the Million Man March, right? But you got black people coming from China, black people from Colombia, black people from here and there. There's black people coming from all over the world, but they all so-called black people, right? You see what I'm saying? It says they was dwelling at Jerusalem. Or let me flip it to you this way. Here in America, you got Mexicans living here in America, right? But what? There's a lot of Mexicans that live in Mexico. Now, what if all the Mexicans happen to come back to Mexico, right? Now, the Mexicans that's in Mexico talking about the Mexicans that came from out of America. Like, oh, y'all ain't even Mexican. Nah, bitch, we are Mexican. We just was living over in America. All right? That's the same thing that's going on here. This is why I say sometimes nowadays we get caught up on what we label as people as different races, based off of their, sometimes off of their language or their religion or the landmass that they was born on. We'll call people according to these different things, but really it's that seed line, that bloodline that's in them. No matter what they look like on the outside, their skin color look like, you see what I'm saying? You could be a so-called black man and look just as white as Bill Gates. All right. It's not about your skin color. All right. All right. And also, you could be a certain person, but it's not based off of the tongue that you speak. Right. You could be a so-called white man, a real Edomite, but you was born in Mexico and the only language you know is Spanish. Right. Or you could be born in China. A so-called white man could be born in China and the only language that he knows is Chinese. Don't stop him from he's still a so-called white man, an Edomite. All right. Even though he only speak Chinese, he don't even know a lick of English. Motherfucker's still Chinese, or he's still a so-called white man. All right. So Acts 2:5, there was dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, or Israelites, devout men out of every nation under heaven. All right. Now, when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and they were confounded because that every man heard them speaking his own language. And they were amazed and marveled, saying to one another, behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? How hear we every man in our own tongue where we were born? So now they all, you know what I'm saying, speaking these different languages and stuff like that. You know, like, wait a minute, these, they looking at all these different Israelites. All right. Again, these are all Israelites. They all might speak different languages and they all might live on different land masses. They might all have different customs based off of like the clothing they might be wearing because they live in different places. You see what I'm saying? They're gonna just be wearing different shit based off of the shit that they be, rocking. You know what I'm saying? Just like here in America, right? If you was born here in America, you was gonna be used to driving Fords and Chevys and so on and so forth. If you go over to Europe, you're gonna be used to driving them little small compact cars. You see what I'm saying? Or certain place where you drive on the other side of the road, or a right-hand side drive car. You could be a black person that only know how to drive right-hand side drive cars on the other side of the road, but you come over to America, don't mean that you don't know how to, wait a minute, you know how to drive a car? Like, I'm not used to driving cars on y'all side of the road and have the left-hand side drive, but yeah, motherfucker, I'm still black, so-called black, and I still know how to drive a fucking car. It's just, I got to learn how to drive it on this side. Don't mean I don't know how to drive a car and I'm not who I am, just because I learned how to drive on a different way. All right. So these same people are all Israelites, even though they was born in different land masses under different, customs, spoke different languages. They all Israelites. Going back to how we opened up, how you're going to have, out of every nation, every kindred, every tongue, people going to wind up being saved, but they all Israelites. All right. This is also where you get the Gentiles at, because again, we didn't know who the fuck we were. And this point in time, these people did know who they were, but they were still living in different land masses. They was already kind of scattered at this point in time. All right. But they was coming over for, I believe, the Passover, Pentecost. All right. So it says, let's get some of these people where they come from. Verse 9. Parthians, Medes, Elamites, dwellers in Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Pargyria, Pamphylia, Egypt, and parts of Libya, Cyrene, strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians. We do hear them speak in our tongues and wonderful works of the Most High. All right. So what they talking about? These Arabians. Now, are these Arabians talking about the Ishmaelites, the Middle Eastern people? Are the Israelites? When you read this, they're saying, there's some some of the Arabs are they're going to be saved, and some of the Egyptians going to be saved. Some of the Romans going to be saved. The white man going to be in there. The Africans is going to be in there. No, it's not talking about that. It's talking about you got Israelites. So for the Egyptians, right? For instance, Yahushua, right? When he was born, because King Herod tried to kill him when he was born. All right. They wound up going and moving and living in Egypt. All right. So, and like the scripture also say, I had to call my son out of Egypt, but Yahushua ain't Egyptian. You see what I'm saying? Even if he was born in Egypt, right? Let's just say he was born in Egypt. Don't mean he's the Egyptian. He's still an Israelite. Let's say he was born in China. Don't mean he Chinese. He's still Israelite. Like we was born here in America. Oh, I was born here in America, right? But I'm still an Israelite. Don't matter where the fuck you was born at, right? I can go get on the plane right now. Just like you say, oh, you an American, right? And you go get on the plane right now. You go have a baby in China. Motherfucker, it's still, if you're a so-called black man, you still got a so-called black baby. You just so happen to give birth over in China, man. All right. And this is what it's going into. These are these people who was born in these different places that speak these different languages, because of how we was reading about the curses that we would be under. We was going to be scattered into the four corners of the earth, into all different nations. This is why we would be speaking these different languages. And also we would mingle our seeds with these different people. Not only will we pick up their customs and speak their different languages and follow their customs and stuff, sometimes we would actually mix with them. And now our seed would look completely different. Our kids wouldn't even look like us no more. So if we coming over here saying, oh, all of the children of Israel, all the black tribes, well, what about Blake Griffin's son? His father, Blake Griffin's father, is a real black man. He would be able to go. And you telling me that it's only black people and it's based off of your seed line. So Blake Griffin's father can go, but his grandson, Blake Griffin's son can't go because he looked like a so-called white man. But I mean, you can see the sperm line going all the way down. His father is a so-called Haitian, which is an Israelite. Blake Griffin looked a little lighter skinned, but he's still a so-called Haitian, Israelite, and his son looked like a straight up white boy. All right. But what? Just because he don't got black skin don't mean he an Israelite no more. You see what I'm saying? This is where our people stumble at, and our people look too hard on some of these things. You need to go to the basics and figure out who we are, where we are, and what the situation is first for everything else to fall into place. It's a lot easier for you to understand the Gentiles, what do you call it? The outcast, or the people that would be scattered all over these places, or out of all these different nations, kindreds, and tongues. They would be all Israelites, because why? Going predicated off of the foundation that what? We would be scattered into all four corners of the earth, and that what? We started mingling with the different seeds. The reason we were scattered to the four corners of the earth is because we was going off to begin with. What do you think we was going to do once we was going off? You thought we was going to get better? No, read the Bible. We kept fucking up. We kept going off. We kept doing all kind of crazy shit, mingling with these other seeds. And this is where we at now. We in our full punishment to where confusion faces upon us. We don't know who is who and what is what. You know what I'm saying? You have some people that don't look like us, that don't even know that they so-called black people. All right. Or so-called Latino or Native American, whatever tribe that they come from. Or you have people that look exactly like us that still don't know that they Israelites because they picking up these customs of these other nations. Nah, nigga, I'm black, cuz. Nah, nigga, I'm American, cuz. Or whatever, whatnot. Nah, I'm whatever, whatnot. I ain't no Israelite. I'm American. I'm from here. You know what I'm saying? That's how our people get down. All right, let me grab a couple more and we out. This is Isaiah 43, verse 5 through 7. It says, fear not, for I am with thee. I will bring thy seed from the east and gather thee from the west. All right. I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. All right. Let me just read verse 7. Every one that is called by my name, for I have created him for my glory. I formed him, yea, I made him. So what the scripture here say, that we was going to be gathered from the four corners of the earth, basically from the east, the west, the north, and the south. So what? That means that we was going to be in all different nations. Not saying that, oh, you know, only so-called, you got to have black skin to be, you know, no, man. You might not look like so-called black man no more in these different nations. Again, the Blake Griffin situation. What if I was taken into captivity into China? All right. You can see in the 3 generations, I would be looking like a goddamn Chinese person. All right. Probably eating Chinese food, speaking the Chinese language. But what? My seed line would still be an Israelite. You see what I'm saying? Granted, you know what I'm saying? If, let's say I had a child with a Chinese woman, that child was a boy child and he had a child with a Chinese woman. That child was a boy child and he had a child with a Chinese woman. By the end all be all, this child would look Chinese at the end of the day, still being an Israelite. All right. But what the Lord said, he's going to gather us back up. And what? When he gathers us back up, when the gathering come, some of us going to look Chinese. Some of us going to look, Japanese. Some of us are going to look Arab. Some of us going to look like the so-called white man. Some of us going to look like Africans. Some of us going to look like, Eskimos. Some of us gonna look like Japheth. Some of us gonna look like Iranians, East Indians. We're gonna look like all kind of different shit, man. All right. But we just tell you these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans because, you know, this is in general, you see what I'm saying? And plus you had this group of people who was scattered into the four corners of the earth, and that's where you wind up getting the dilution at. But we don't just, you know, we, like the scriptures say, the spirit bear witness with our spirit. All right. We try the spirit by the spirit. All right. So it's not necessarily a thing on skin color. We just use that as a generalization. All right. This is Isaiah 11:11. It says, and it shall come to pass that in that day, Yahweh shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people. What does that mean? Go back to the foundations. We was going to be scattered into Deuteronomy 28:64. We was going to be scattered into the four corners of the earth. All right. Verse 68, we was going to be sold to our enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. So we already scattered into the other nations. Go to Ezra chapter 9, where it goes into what? We mingled our seeds with these other heathen. All right. And it shall come to pass that in that day, Yahweh shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, from Cush, from Elam, from Shinar, from Hamath, and from the isles of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations and assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. All right. So going into, hey, that's just plain and simple. There's no breakdown needed for that. All right. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you're going to be gathered from all four corners of the earth. All right. We're going to close out with Ezekiel 37. This is Ezekiel 37, verse 21. And say unto them, thus saith Yahweh power, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whether they be gone, and gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. All right. So what? The children of Israel who were scattered amongst all these different heathen in every nation, every culture, all these different people, we scattered amongst them all. The Most High say he's going to bring us out of all these different people. All right. And the Blake Griffin is your example that we still, because of how the so-called white man and us and the scriptures say we was mixing with these other nations, we're not all going to look the same, man. All right. We're going to have different looks to us. We're going to have, you know, different dialects of speech and different things that we, you know, you could be looking at a so-called black man, but he looks straight up like Bruce Lee. Speaking that Ching Chang shit. You know what I'm saying? Xi Jinping, the president over China. This motherfucker could be a so-called black man. You see what I'm saying? You just don't know. All right, you got to try the spirit by the spirit. Like the scripture say, our spirit bear witness with the spirit that we are the children of the Most High. All right. It goes back to the seed line, not your skin color, not the language you speak, not the landmass you was born on. All right. So it says, and saying to them, thus saith Yahweh power, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whether they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all, and they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all. All right, and with that, Lord willing, this here lesson was edifying into the elect. I'm going to go ahead and close out and say, Call Halal Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation and much love for you, I can pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. Until next time, I say, stay strong and shalom.